So the entrepreneurs you're working with went through 6 weeks of training with me back in February, March. They then went through 4 months of mentoring from a successful entrepreneur in the community, and then they get you. So if you would like to meet with the mentor who worked with your client, let me know and we'll connect you with the mentor. The mentor can just give you a perspective on what they worked with with the entrepreneur, their take on the entrepreneur, their sense of what's important with that entrepreneur. So if you'd like to try to connect, I think one team has connected, but if you'd like to connect with the mentor and just have a chat, Zoom or whatever, over at Starbucks, whatever, just let me know, send me an email. I sent you a note a few minutes ago, but there's still some teams I'm missing that final signed letter of commitment. It's when I get that final signed letter of commitment that I can check that off and you're done with that in the bank accounts and so forth. That's most of my announcements. This Thursday, life will be a little bit easier. The library is closed for whatever reason. Libraries close on a Thursday night, but so we have reserved space and a little tougher on the clients, a little easier on you. The Thursday meetings will be right across the street at the Idea Center. So we'll be in the, everybody know where the Idea Center is? So it's part of the Notre Dame campus. It's, how do I say, it's right across from the hockey arena on the other side of Angela. You know where the hockey arena is? It's actually called the Innovation something. Innovation Park is what it's called, but it's the Idea Center. If you have any questions, just email me and I'll clarify, but we're gonna meet there. When you come in the lobby or the main door, be standing in there and telling each team, here's the place you can meet with your client that should be private and quiet. Actually, it'd be quieter than local unless there's some weird thing going on at the Idea Center, than the library rooms. Okay, so Thursday night, you don't need to worry about transport. You just walk across the street to the Idea Center. And that's that. Yes, sir.
Should we be informing the entrepreneurs that there or have they
We're gonna let them know. When you send a reminder, every week you should send them a reminder, looking forward to seeing you tonight or whatever.
Yeah.
But before that, we will have told them. Yeah. Anything else? So what are you doing right now? Edie?
You're trying to figure out
There's a business model for each of your two clients, and the business model captures the essence of the business. I went through the components of the business model. We're gonna elaborate on some of those components. But I thought that there is a sample business model done by a team in the past that's on the Canvas site. It wasn't. Overall, it was a good attempt, but it's got a bunch of flaws. And so the problem when I give examples is students assume everything in the example is great, even if half of the example isn't that great, but the other half is really, really good. So that's the case of the one that's on there. It's Reset Room, I think. So what I did was pull out one of the best business models from last year in the consulting class. Thank you. Everybody gets a sign-in sheet. And make copies, so you have more of something to work from And that is this. Thank you.
Your work.
Too many somewhere and not somewhere else. That's normal. Sure didn't get one. You didn't get one? You? Everybody. What if you take a quick glance at this, what I want to highlight, for instance, is what do you see on, don't worry about the page numbers, because it's out of their final controlling report, so that's why the page numbers are off. But what do you notice on page 9?
The breadth and depth of service.
An attempt at a depth and breadth chart of the revenue drivers for the business. What I want you to notice, especially, is the part 2. The part 1 is how do we create value? How does your entrepreneur create value? Part 2 is who do we create value for? And what you'll notice there is the team has actually tried to. So what are you doing when you put this business model together? You're describing, think in terms of 3 things, okay? In each of the sections, how do we create value? Who do we create value for? What's our source of internal advantage? How are we differentiated? How do we make money? And then what's our growth plan? In each of those sections, you should be thinking 3 things. Describe, analyze, critique. And you all have 2 clients, one of which is maybe a little bit more sophisticated, one of which is a little less sophisticated, or less farther along. The less further along one may have less certainty about what they're thinking in all those areas. So you're trying to get their thinking, but also not be afraid to show how it's flawed or where it could be improved. And so if you look at this example of how we create value and that I just gave you, the team is basically saying, when we look at who we create value for, we're asking that question, who we create value for. Well, is it B2B or B2C? Is it more of a local South Bend market or regional or national? But a critical issue in this section that if it's not there, you lose points. If it's there, you get points, is how does the market segment? How does the market break down? And you'll see that the team has basically said, so critique, not just describe, but critique. The team has basically said the entrepreneur is really looking at the market as everybody's a possible customer, which is the worst way to look at a market. The entrepreneur needs to segment the market and prioritize particular segments. And here are some examples of possible segments that might make sense. It's not definitive. It's not saying here's who to go after, but it's showing thoughtfulness in terms of here's an example of a way the entrepreneur might want to think about breaking down the market. You'll do more subsequent work if you're segmenting the market for the client, but that's what I mean by critique and add value. All the while you're adding value in each of the sections. So I hope you find that to be a helpful example. What is section 5 in the business model about?
The profit model.
The profit model. How do we make money? And the minute I say, how do we make money with a profit model, what should you be thinking of? Especially those with absolutely zero business background. What should you be thinking?
Revenue drivers?
Revenue drivers for sure, so they're showing up twice, first in the how do we create value and then in the profit model. But what thing in class did I illustrate to get you thinking about the logic of profit? Margins and
Volume.
volumes. And you should immediately just go to the story or the example I gave you. So the story or example I gave you is, think about how a grocery store makes money. Low margins, but a lot of volume, people buy a lot of groceries. Think of how a jewelry store makes money. They don't sell that many diamond rings each day, but the margin is huge on diamond rings. So, and I'm gonna come back to that, but that's the logic you should be thinking about. So once we get to economics or the profit model, let me use those terms interchangeably, the economics of the business profit model, we start to look at numbers. And there's some students who love numbers, and there's a lot of students who hate numbers or find numbers intimidating or scary. I promise. And it's the same with your entrepreneurs. If you have a numbers phobia and you'll just let go of it for a few minutes, I promise the numbers will make sense. And that's a big promise to make for somebody who's like, I hate numbers. The minute I see numbers, I tune out. We're going to try to make sense of the numbers. To get to the numbers with your clients. So what were you telling me about your one client, Reverend
Yeah, about his margins.
Reverend
Ward.
Ward? You were saying, tell me what you were saying about how he sets his prices or makes quotes on catering jobs.
Yeah, he like sets a minimum like percent margin that he wants, and then he looks at his customer when he meets with them before he.
Well, that last part is important. I'm going to ask you about that later in the
Okay.
semester, but first part.
He sets it like 100% margin for everything.
He listens to what the client says. I'm having a birthday party for 60 people. I need a chicken dinner catered. And then he
Just
adds 100%.
Yeah.
That, I got it right?
Yeah.
So that's what he's saying. The client told him, yeah, I just figure out what the client's asking me for, what it's gonna cost me, and I add 100%. Now, if you listen to some of Tom's advice, when Tom's talking about what's the it's like the whole thing with nuclear weapons and the Russians. What's the famous saying? Trust but verify. You ever heard that? Trust but verify. They told us they got rid of some nuclear weapons, but don't believe it till you actually see they got rid of it. So it's the same with the clients. You want to have a trust relationship with the client, but you want to verify what they're telling you. And so when you listen to Reverend Ward talk about his catering business, and he said, well, I figure I might add 100%. You want to validate or verify that that's what's really happening, which means you can't just accept what they're saying. Because I guarantee you, he's not getting 100%. And I haven't seen his numbers, but I've seen enough of these folks' numbers to know. So, and if he is, I'd be happy to be proven wrong. To verify means you have to look at the numbers, which means what?
Ask for them.
Huh? You have to get the numbers, meaning you gotta ask the client for their books. for their financial records. You can't wait any more time to do this. Some of them will resist and you can't let them put you off for 3 weeks. So what's the ultimate fallback? Who's the bad guy? Dr. Morris. Dr. Morris insisted we have to have these numbers. And the clients agreed upfront to share their numbers. And we have that in writing, right? They checked off the thing. So they have committed to share the numbers. And if it's an issue, call me over to the table and I'll help sort it out. But you got to ask for these numbers. You've got to ask for their books. You need their income statement. If they have one. If they just have a box full of receipts and no real bookkeeping, ask for the box of receipts so you can create the bookkeeping for them and you can estimate roughly what their numbers are. Okay? I'm gonna forget to give this to you if I don't give it to you right now. Before I leave the business model, what's the first section? How do you create value? And what did I stress last time on the board? Map out the revenue drivers. So map out the revenue drivers and try to get a sense of the percentage of revenue coming from each of those things. So in a restaurant, what would that be in a typical restaurant?
The different dishes that they might have.
Well, if I was going to take a restaurant, I'd probably divide things how? Revenue drivers.
From deliveries, in-person, in-house eating.
Assume it's
deliveries.
all in-house.
Okay. You divide it according to,
Entrees,
yeah,
Very sides.
entrees, sides, mains.
sides,
Desserts.
appetizers, regular beverages, alcoholic beverages. You might have 5 categories, right? What were you gonna say?
Drinks.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so however they break out, you want to get a sense of that, just like the bowling alley example I gave you. So if you happen to look at the sample business model that's on the Canvas site, it's for something called the Reset Room. This entrepreneur who had an online business where she would train and advise and consult to women entrepreneurs around the country. And you'll see in that example how the students initially broke out the revenue drivers. And when one pushed back on that and they learned more, this was an interesting deliverable that the students produced for that same business. And so no, that's true. So in this example, here the now let's just think of some of the stuff that's something in. Remember the commodity trap. What's one of the real problems? So here's a woman providing counseling and consulting and training to women across the country online. What's her biggest limitation in providing that service? What's her biggest limitation?
Knowledge.
She has the knowledge.
Time.
She's good. So her time is the problem. That's exactly right, Kiki. Her problem is her time because she's doing it all. It's her labor. If it's a training session, she's got to tie up 2 hours in delivering the training. If it's a consulting session, she's got to tie up an hour and a half doing the consulting. And there's only so many hours in the day, and she's got to do her marketing, trying to reach out across the country, she got to do her bookkeeping, so. What do you want in that business? Sources of revenue that,
A high margin.
sources of, yes, but sources of revenue, think about her time, her labor, huh? That are passive. What do you mean by passive revenue?
She's not actively creating to earn this revenue, it can happen while she's doing something else.
So how can I get passive revenue? Training.
Employing something else, yeah.
Allocate.
You could make like a class, an online something or
And
a book. Or sell it.
when she gives a training session, create a video of it. And put the video on the site that people can access when they want, but they have to pay for that. She doesn't have to be there to give it, right? So that's what you see here in this interesting diagram. The students have rethought what she's doing and created, as there one I can look at? That's here.
Oh,
So they've sat there and said, well, we've listened to you and we've studied and we've interacted with you and analyzed and discussed with you. It seems to us that you ought to rethink your revenue drivers. And let's break them into 5 categories. Membership, VIP days, which is a one-day program. Let's see, access to videos. So if you buy membership, you get access to videos. You can now have a community of people around the country that can interact with each other. Potential source of new value for customers. VIP days, you can see the price there, a whole one-day program offered on a weekday. I think that was her bread and butter. The weekend intensive, which is a 2.5-day program, but offered to a group of people at different locales online. The one-off digital and the automation lab, which looks very attractive. It's $10,000 for her to create websites and stuff for you, but she hardly ever sold these things. That's a lot of money from the people she was serving. And so you can see the team has nicely laid out an alternative revenue model for the reset room, described how each of the components of the revenue model might work, but then looked at her time allocation, because it's all about her and the limited time she has. And based on that, you can see a set of specific recommendations they're making to the client in terms of what the client should do with revenue drivers. So I just think it's a cool example of students taking the concepts they're being exposed to, taking a real client and actually creating value, actually getting the entrepreneur thinking a little differently about how she makes money. Okay, let's go to trying to make sense of the numbers, okay? And what kind of consulting are we doing?
Process.
So everything's a process, right? How about looking at the numbers as a process? So. So let's go to 7 steps. A numbers process. What do you need to do with your client? Think of it, just take a blank sheet of paper. Or if they have any financial statements, you can use those. What's everything they could possibly spend money on? Just make a list. Everything. So if it's a store, you know, they may need to pay rent. They may need to carry business insurance if they can afford it. They may be delivering things, so there's transport, there's gas. That think of have laborers, hourly labor. Think of everything the clients could spend money on, and then you're going to put those all those items, whatever they are, into two boxes. One box is things they spend money on that are directly tied to how many units they make. So if they make cupcakes, the expenses directly tied to making cupcakes. And second pile is everything else. Things that I spend money on, but are not directly tied to making cupcakes. Like, is paying rent tied to making cupcakes? Not directly. Is paying for insurance tied to making cupcakes? Not, but buying sugar is tied to making cupcakes. Buying those little things the cupcake goes in, what are they called?
Molds?
I don't know, the thing, the cupcake, you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, then we're gonna group them, we're gonna label them fixed cost and variable cost. And those are gonna make sense in just a few minutes. Then we're gonna do something you've already done, figure out what your revenue drivers are and what your margins are on each revenue driver. So on each revenue driver, how much is left over after the cost is covered? What's the margin, profit margin on the revenue? And based on that, we're gonna figure out break-even. Okay? They seem like a lot, it's not. So we start with costs. And your costs, all the things you could spend in a business, fall into two piles, two boxes. Those that are directly related to what you make, and those that you spend money on, even though they're not directly tied to what you make. The expenses you have that are directly tied to what you make are called variable expenses or variable costs. This is one of the most misunderstood concepts in business. Because when you hear variable cost, it sounds like a cost that varies, doesn't it? The problem is all costs can vary. All costs can vary. You'll see that in just a second, but any cost you have can go up or down. Your rent can be higher next year than it is this year. But it's not a variable cost. Variable means this. And I would write it down. Variable means it's a cost that changes in direct proportion. Those are the magic words. In direct proportion to the number of units you produce and sell. Cost that changes in direct proportion to the number of units you produce and sell. If it's a catering business, it's a cost that varies in direct proportion to the number of catering jobs you do. If you sell wedding dresses, it's a cost that changes in direct proportion to how many wedding dresses we make and sell. Okay? So for one of your clients, who are your two clients? Tanika does. So a variable cost would be a cost that varies with each kid that signs up to do daycare. That's right. And for the other client? Is a cost that varies with the number of notary jobs completed. Things notarized. Okay? Does everybody get that? Anybody not? Everybody gets that? In front of you individually, without talking to your teammate, pick one of your clients and write down a cost that you think is variable. Give me the cost. Give me the client.
The client is Urbanisms LLC. which is the organizers, he sells candles, so our.
Candle makers.
Uh-huh.
So a variable cost for candle maker would be
Wax.
wax. Excellent. Give me one.
Erica, home improvement,
So she does painting and drywall
Yeah.
and, okay,
signs of pink.
paint would be a variable cost. More jobs I have, the more paint I need to buy,
Cleaning, countries, to that cleaning,
okay?
detergents. Buying detergents.
Detergent, okay. What would be a key variable cost for a cleaning business? Much more than the cleaning of products.
Material cost.
That is, cleaning is material.
Supplies.
Her biggest variable cost would be hourly labor. Far and away, hourly labor. Give me one,
Vegan bites by Jazz.
vegan bites,
Yeah,
okay,
so for lasagna, she needs tomatoes, so tomatoes are variable cost.
good.
Steak slabs, slabs of steak. Steak,
Steak,
barbecue.
barbecue, oh, the steak is the variable cost for a barbecue business, okay?
Meat and pepper for MJ's smoked meats and stuff.
Well, everybody's giving me the same kind of business, so give me the other client, what's the second one?
The Empty City, she's offering hourly labor as the cost for her Reiki service.
For doing Reiki?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Reiki's where you like hold your hands and
Yeah, energy.
evil spirits come, or what, energy,
Driving energy.
okay, good, good.
Mine is Maya's piñatas and I put up the sticks to.
The sticks that-
Hit them.
That you hit them with, okay, you sell the sticks with the
He
pinata?
provides them for free if they purchase.
Okay, which is cost to her, yeah, good, excellent. So you get it, right? So variable cost, your key variable cost in most of your businesses would be direct materials, direct labor, hourly labor, not salaries, hourly labor. Those would be your key variable costs. But for a lot of your businesses, if there's any packaging that goes with the product, the packaging would be a variable cost. If we sell stuff and deliver it, the delivery cost could be a variable cost. If I hire for my business, my candle making business, I hire Edie, and Edie's job is to make sales for me, go get me customers. And I pay Edie a commission. I pay her a commission, meaning every time she gets me a customer, she makes some money. A commission would be a variable cost. It's varying with the number of units produced and sold. So variable does not mean changeable. Variable means it changes in direct proportion to the number of units produced and sold. Amen? Does that make sense? If you struggle with it, I want to help you with, make sure it registers. Okay, so so that's variable expenses, okay? What's a fixed cost? That second pile, all those other expenses are called fixed. They don't vary with the number of units produced and sold. So they stay relatively the same for a defined period of time, or a defined level of production. Right? So regardless of how many units you produce and sell, what would stay the same, at least for the next 12 months? Rent, right? Rent. But rent could go up next year. So rent could vary, but it's a fixed cost because it stays the same regardless of how many units you produce and sell. So rent is gonna be a fixed cost. What else would be fixed? Doesn't change with how many units you produce or sell.
Gas. Transport. Gas prices.
For what? What are we using gas for? You have to ask that question.
You take her salt from one place to another. It's always going to be there.
If she's using her gas to go buy raw materials. If she's using the gas to come to a training session, that's a fixed cost. If she's using the gas to deliver products to customers, and so the more products I deliver, the more miles I have to drive, it's a variable cost. Yeah,
What they pay for their website, if they have one,
the website expenditure would be a
fixed cost.
fixed cost. I gotta pay for the website each year, whether we had a ton of business or nobody bought from us at all.
Maybe like some grill for barbecue, like they bought the grill and they use it.
I'm gonna come to that in a moment. Hold that thought. Think of other things that are fixed that we spend money on. What would office supplies? That's an expenditure, right? Well, like trash bags, Post-it notes, pens, pencils. What would office supplies be?
Depending on how.
Doesn't depend.
Okay.
Why would it be fixed? Because if I sell one more cupcake, I don't necessarily use any office supplies. And more importantly, the use of office supplies doesn't change in direct proportion with how many cupcakes I make and sell. That's the decision rule. It's that simple. Does it change in direct proportion with how many cupcakes I make? How many catering jobs I do? So office supplies would be fixed. Would be fixed. Does this make sense? There's one tricky one. Maria just pointed it out. And the tricky one is, what happens if I have a piece of equipment, a machine, a server, a truck? Anything like that is called a fixed asset. Something you own in the business, a cash register. In a hair salon, chairs. Well, those fixed assets, it's also called capital equipment. But those things, like I buy a truck. And let's say I buy a truck. So you got a truck that you need to buy, right? For your,
Needs to be bought still, but yeah.
for your one client, they want to deliver medical equipment or whatever. So let's say I buy a truck, okay? And I pay $30,000 for the truck. Okay? The truck might, in the real world, in practice, be good for 12 years. But when it comes to accounting, with something like a truck or a cash register or some chairs, you make an assumption of the useful life. How fast will the truck be used up? How fast will the chair start to get uncomfortable or cracks in it or whatever? Okay, so let's assume, and you can go online and see what standard useful lives are for different things. But let's say you assume the truck is good for 5 years. It may be actually good for 12, but you're allowed to treat it for 5 years of using it in the business every day. It'll be used up. Okay. Well, what does that suggest is happening each year for 5 years? It's wearing out, right? So how much is it wearing out?
6,000 a year.
6,000.
Year.
It's wearing out to the tune of 6,000 a year, such that after 5 years, it'll be fully used up. Whether that really happens doesn't matter. Okay, so you can actually, in business, write off an expense, and that expense is called depreciation expense of $6,000 a year. It shows up as an expense, just like paying rent or insurance, even though no money was expended this year on the truck. Okay? Rent would be a variable or fixed?
Fixed.
Fixed cost. I mean, not rent, depreciation would be a fixed cost. It doesn't vary with how many units I produce myself. I'm just writing off the truck or writing off the cash register, writing off the computer, yeah.
So we're assuming that like, if more business means like more wear and tear on the truck, like we're not factoring in the fact that more wear and tear might cause it to depreciate faster.
It could depreciate faster, but it doesn't matter. Because you have a fixed amount you're allowed to write off each year, no matter how much you actually sold that year.
Okay.
If I sold 2 more today, the depreciation doesn't change. It's a fixed amount for the year.
Okay.
Based on a 5-year life and original purchase price of 30,000. So your logic makes sense. It's just in practice, did the amount of the depreciation expense actually change? No, it's fixed. Oh, yes.
What happens after the 5 years? What do you reflect in your?
The product, the asset is completely depreciated.
But let's assume it isn't.
Even if you're still using it, doesn't matter. From a number standpoint, it's completely depreciated. It no longer affects your numbers in any way. Okay? Yes,
Different methods of depreciation.
there are. But we're working with poverty entrepreneurs. So what's our mantra? Keep it simple. Keep it simple. So there's something called accelerated depreciation where you can write it off faster in the earlier years. There are other approaches not gonna come into play because our entrepreneurs have so few assets, they own so few things. We'll just keep it simple. It's good question. Okay? All right, let's see if this is sunk in. So I just described fixed costs to you. Here's a big one. Marketing. Is marketing a variable cost or a fixed cost? What should you be thinking right now? Does marketing change in direct proportion to how many units I produce or sell? It does not. So marketing is a fixed cost. Bingo. The reason people struggle with marketing is they go, well, you got to spend more on marketing if you're going to sell more. But that's not how you, what do you do in business? You decide we can spend $10,000 this year on marketing, meaning you just fixed marketing at 10,000. Whether you sell nothing this year or a ton of stuff, you spent 10,000 on marketing. If sales are slow and you decide we got to spend more on marketing, you move it to 15,000, but now it's fixed at 15,000. So marketing is a fixed cost. Another one that sometimes confuses people, marketing is always a fixed cost. I mean, there's always exceptions, but for your purposes, it'll be rare that marketing would not be fixed. Another one that confuses people is think about Jimmy John's overall. Always think of real businesses and things will make more sense. But think about Jimmy John's over on Eddy Street, right? Now, if you look at that business, even if you've never seen their numbers, and none of us have, what do we know about that business? They sell sandwiches, right? So they got to pay for bread and ham and lettuce and tomatoes, right? But those costs pale in comparison to what? Jimmy John's on Eddy Street, which is right across the street from Notre Dame. So what do we know about Jimmy John's?
Paying a lot of rent.
They pay a shitload of money for rent. That's a big fixed cost. What else do they have to spend money on at Jimmy John's? It's a chain, so they have a manager. And that manager not paid hourly, she's paid a salary. That's a fixed cost. And they gotta carry business insurance. That's a fixed cost. And they need to pay for marketing. That's a fixed cost. So even though they may have a lot of variable costs, they have even more fixed costs. Which makes it tough for them to survive at that location. What do they depend on? What do they depend on to survive? Students who do what?
Based on.
Go where? Come on, think practically. Jimmy John's, where's it located?
It's close and it's.
On Eddy Street.
it's
What's that prime constituency? The only reason to be located right there? Students. So what happens?
Students go off campus.
To go where?
Go to-
To bars.
go to-
And when they go to bars on Eddy Street, what do?
Drink.
They drink. And when they get done drinking, what happens? They got the munchies. They want to eat something. So they go to Jimmy John's and buy a sub. Which is why it would make sense for Jimmy John's to do what? To stay open till at least midnight. When everything else is sort of closed down on Eddy Street, because that's when we can get business. When did the profit picture start to dim for Jimmy John's?
During classes.
A month around Christmas, when there are no students here. And almost 4 months in the summertime. They suck wind. They struggle to stay in business those other months. They gotta do a lot of activity while students are here, or, and we'll come back to that example. All right, so you get the, so I didn't, what other expense do they have at Jimmy John's?
Cleaning?
Do they have to pay for electricity,
Yeah.
water,
They do, they do.
AC, heat in the wintertime? Is utilities a fixed cost or a variable cost? It's an interesting question. That'll just throw you for a loop, but are utilities a fixed cost or a variable cost? So right now you're thinking, does it change in direct proportion to the number of
Units produced.
units produced, cupcakes made and sold? Why is it confusing? Because some of it does. If I bake more cupcakes, I use more energy, but some of it doesn't. Why?
Keep the lights on.
I gotta keep the lights on and heat on or air conditioning on, whether we had no customers come in today or a ton of customers. Because a lot of it stays the same, we treat utilities as a fixed cost. Even though it has a variable component to it, we treat it as a fixed cost. Unless what if it was a car wash?
Yeah.
The water you use
Is an asset.
is directly proportionate to how many cars you wash. And the water you use is most of your utility bill. So if it was a car wash, so you have to use your judgment is what I'm saying with individual business. As a car wash, I treat water as a variable cost. All right. If this makes sense, help me out here. All together. Let's go through the list. Rent,
Fixed.
fixed. Insurance,
Fixed.
fixed. Interest, so I have a loan and I make interest payments every month. Fixed. You don't pay any more on the loan because we had more sales today or we didn't have any sales. Marketing, treat that as fixed. But I pay somebody a sales commission. It varies with how many units they sell, so. Okay. Depreciation? Good. Professional fees, this would be like paying an accountant or a lawyer or an architect or
Fix.
fixed. It doesn't change with how many cupcakes you sell. You paid for the bookkeeper. Direct labor? Variable. Direct materials that go into your cupcakes or your wedding dresses. variable. Merchandise that you purchase from somebody else and sell. So I don't make the wedding dresses. I buy the wedding dresses from somebody else, put them in my store and sell them.
Variable.
That would be a variable cost. Excellent. That would be a variable cost. Travel.
It depends.
It depends. If it's travel to go to a trade show or to go visit a supplier or to go to a training session, it's fixed. If it's travel for delivery purpose of delivering candles to customers' houses, then it would be variable. Salaries, anybody you pay, so hourly employees are variable. But anybody you pay a fixed salary to, so I'll pay you $50,000 a year to be my manager, is you gotta pay that salary every month, whether we had any customers or we didn't have any customers. It's a mistake our clients often make. They'll hire their first employee and they'll put them on a salary. It's crazy. If you're a low-income, resource-constrained entrepreneur, you hire somebody, you want their payment to be tied to activity in the business. You want it to be direct hourly, you want it to be variable. Fringe means I'm paying Social Security on my employees, I'm paying workers' compensation for my employees, I'm paying for health insurance for my employees. It would be fixed. The voices are getting lighter, you're not feeling the confidence. Office supplies, fixed. Shipping, that's where I tend to separate shipping away from travel. But if you're shipping, that's varies with how many units we sell and ship. I lease a copier,
Fixed.
or my business is power washing driveways and sidewalks, I lease the power washing unit. It's a fixed cost. I buy uniforms for my employees, or t-shirts that say Mike's Movers on them.
Fixed.
It's fixed. It doesn't change with how many moving jobs we do. Utilities, we just decided was gonna be fixed. I pay for a security system because I have a store and I don't want people breaking in. Fixed cost, excellent. Make sense?
Yeah.
With me? Amen? Yes, sir.
Why did you separate shipping from travel?
Huh?
What did you mean when you said that you're separating shipping? and
I just, to me, travel is not delivery. Travel is traveling for purposes of developing the business. Whereas shipping implies I'm getting the product's been purchased and I'm getting it to a customer. So the shipping cost is varying with, and so that could be what delivery effectively is.
And in our case, our entrepreneur is traveling to get the materials, and the materials are proportional to the sales. So in that case,
But the travel is not
travel is not.
proportionate to the sales. He buys once a week, he buys once a month, but every time he buys, it doesn't directly, it's not directly proportionate to how many he made and sold. That's always the decision rule. You keep that in mind, it becomes simple. Okay? All right, so these businesses have fixed costs and they have variable costs. Here's the $100,000 question. Which must you cover first? Your fixed cost or your variable? You have to pay all your bills. But in theory, which must you cover first? I heard one fixed, two fixed,
Three.
three fixed. I didn't hear any variable. Which must you cover first in business? Fixed or variable? In theory. Gotta pay all your bills, but in theory. You say fixed. Everybody says fixed. The answer is, what's the answer? No. The answer is variable. Some of you go, well, the answer should be it depends. It does not depend. You must always cover your variable cost first. Why?
do something to sell?
Well, if I don't pay rent, do I have something to sell? Good thought. Go ahead. I thought you had to-
It might be like the same as what she's saying, but like, if you don't bring in money, how are you gonna even pay the other ones?
Well, that's a good thought too. It's not exactly that, but it's good. You're thinking right. Let's say, watch what happens here. Use simple numbers. Okay? Let's say I write a business plan for my business, for my proposed medical transport business, whatever the business is. But in my business plan, I assume my price is $12 a unit. And my business plan suggests that my variable cost per unit, the cost of making one cupcake or washing one car or doing one catering job, whatever it is, that my variable cost per unit is $10. Okay? And my fixed costs, total fixed costs for the year, the insurance I'm gonna pay, the rent I'm gonna pay, the marketing I'm gonna do, salaries I'm gonna pay, my fixed costs come to 10,000 per year. This is what the business plan said. Okay? Well, what do we know about business plans?
They change.
They're always wrong. Almost always wrong. Things happen differently in reality than they did when you put them on paper for your plan. So we make the product and we start selling it. Watch what happens. We make the product and we start selling it, but we cannot get $12 a unit. We can only get $9 a unit. People will pay $9. Okay? Everybody, look at the numbers. If I make and sell one unit, what's my situation?
-1.
-$1.
-$1.
No,
Yeah, 10,001.
that's correct. If I make and sell one unit, when you see parentheses, that means the number's negative. If I make and sell one unit, I'm 10,001 in the hole. Everybody sees that? You see that? Okay, you just saying uh-huh, or you like it? I only charge $9. How much did it cost me to make the candle? $10. So I lost $1 on the candle, and I also have all those fixed costs. 10,001. Okay? It's okay to ask. It's okay to ask. All right. If I hadn't made and sold that unit, what would my situation have been? I'd be 10,000 in the hole. Because I have to pay the rent and insurance whether I had any sales or not. So if I made no units, what's my situation? I gotta pay those fixed costs. I'm 10,000 in the hole. So what can you tell me, Kiki? Because I made that one unit and it did not cover its variable cost, because we always cover variable costs first. Because it didn't cover its own variable cost, I am worse off for having made it. Variable costs are incremental costs. You incur them because you made and sold a unit. So at a minimum, you got to cover that. Hopefully you'll make more than that and start to contribute to your fixed costs. Now, let's say it wasn't like that at all. Let's say I actually got the $12. At $12, I make and sell one unit. What's my situation? Not heavy math, yeah.
Negative 9,998.
I'm 9998 in the hole. Meaning I'm better off. Because if I hadn't made and sold the unit, I would have been 10,000 in the hole. I still have to cover the fixed costs. But because I made the unit and it covered its own variable cost and made a $2 contribution is the word. Made a $2 contribution to my fixed cost, I'm better off. That's why you always cover your variable cost first. If I'm not covering my variable costs, every time I make and sell a unit, I'm digging a bigger hole. If I only got the $9 and I made a second unit, I'm 10,002 in the hole. And I made a third unit, I'm 10,003 in the hole. The hole keeps getting bigger unless you can cover your variable cost first. So what's the logic? Cover your variable costs and have something left over to contribute to your fixed cost. And once you sell enough units, you not only will cover all your variable costs and all your fixed costs, you start contributing to profit. Okay? What did I just say?
Cover variable cost first.
You cover your variable costs and hopefully there's enough left over to contribute to your fixed costs. Eventually you cover all your fixed costs. Now you start contributing to profit. So what's the magic word? Contribution. Watch this. Watch this. If you take your price, what do you cover first?
Variable cost second.
Subtract your variable cost per unit. That gives you something called the contribution margin. The contribution margin. It is your magic number if you're an entrepreneur. Your contribution margin. Because now we're home, we're done. That's all the math. What do we really want to know? We don't want to cover our variable costs. We want to cover all our costs and make money. Break even is what we want to know. How many units do I have to sell to at least break even? To at least cover all my costs? Does that make sense? And it's super simple. You're not going to believe how simple it is. If I take my total fixed cost and divide by the contribution margin, that's break even. That's the whole story. Total fixed cost over the contribution margin is break even. Okay, let's take an example. An entrepreneur with a car wash. Okay, the price that we charge for the car wash is $15. Do we have any variable costs? Hourly labor, guys that are wiping your car down, whatever. Water, yeah.
Electricity.
Probably not electricity, but certainly water. Assume our variable cost per unit, which would be per car washed, is $9. What are our total fixed costs?
Rent,
Rent.
insurance.
You better carry insurance. You screw somebody's car up, you're in trouble, right? So better carry some insurance, you damage your car. All right, let's, and I do some marketing, maybe I have a manager who runs the place. Assume my total fixed costs are, we'll keep it, let's say 40,000 for the year. That's all you need to know. What's my contribution margin? What's the formula for contribution margin? Your client's price for the product minus the variable cost per unit. So it's 15 minus 9 equals 6. What's break even? Total fixed cost divided by the contribution margin. What's the total fixed cost? 40,000. What's the contribution margin? What's that come to?
6-ish, 6.6,
What is
6.7,
the calculator? What is it?
6,000.
What's 6 under 40,000?
6,666.6.
6 what? 6666?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So. What is that number?
That's the break-even quantity.
Explain it. Explain it using the number. Mike, you have to,
You have to sell 6,600.
I'm washing cars. I'm not selling anything. I'm washing cars.
Okay, you have to then wash 6,667 cars to break even.
If I wash 6,667 cars, I will break even. The minute I wash the 6,668th car, I'm making a profit. If that's for the year, whoever had their calculator out, keep your calculator out. If that's for the year, that's for 12 months. Divide 6,666 by 12.
555.
It's 555,
I need to wash 555 cars a month. Let's assume I'm open 6 days a week, closed on Sunday. That's 24 days a month. Let's divide 555 by 24,
3 cars or
huh?
23 cars.
When the entrepreneur comes to work each day, what is she thinking?
How do I?
I have to wash 23 cars today to be breaking even. So any day I only wash 10 cars is a crappy day. Any day I wash 30 days, fantastic day. If we go to the hotel across the street, the Embassy Suites, right? What was this past weekend? A very good day. Why?
We won.
No, it's a hotel. You're an entrepreneur. Why? Doesn't matter whether we won or lost to them. What matters?
Well, it's a
They
big
were at 100% occupancy. They know their break even is 45% occupancy. Any day they are below 45% occupancy is a bad day, and they have a lot of bad days. That hotel is not jam-packed every day of the summer. Any day there's a game or there's a graduation or a conference at Notre Dame, I'm at 80%, 90%, 100% occupancy. That's a good day. I gotta have a lot of good days to offset all those other days, and the entrepreneur thinks this way. You're an entrepreneur, you need to teach your entrepreneur to think this way. That's break even. Now, and that these slides just do what I just did. So you cover your variable cost first, there's your break even formula. What question might you have about break even for your particular clients? Or what's the problem with the way I've just presented this? What does it assume?
That everything is great.
I don't know if it's right or wrong, but maybe I'm thinking like the capacity of that's business.
Capacity is important, but not for the calculation. The capacity is going to tell me, I don't have enough capacity to even get to break even. That would be worse.
That there's one product that's priced the same every single.
There you go. Excellent. This whole analysis assumes I'm selling one thing. But what do we know about your clients? They have multiple revenue drivers. They sell long boards and short boards and boogie boards and wax. They sell entrees, they sell desserts, they sell appetizers. Right? So how do you calculate break even when you have multiple revenue drivers, not just one product? This is how you do it. So in this example, what do you see? I have 4 revenue drivers. And what did I do? First thing I did was, first thing you always do is figure out your contribution margin. Okay, so I got my contribution margin, so you can see for revenue driver 1, 50 cents, every unit contributes 50 cents to fixed costs and profits. $1.70, $7.10. So then I have to decide, are those equally important products or revenue drivers? What I'm doing, and this is a very acceptable thing to do, is weight these numbers, put a weight on them, based on what percentage of sales each revenue driver represents. So let's assume revenue driver 1 is 30% of sales, revenue driver 2 is 10% of sales, 25%, and 35%. So I take 0.30 times 0.5 and I get 0.15. I take 170 times 10%, I get 17 cents. I take a dollar times 25%, I get 25 cents. I take 35% of 710, I get 248. I add those up, 305 would be my weighted average contribution margin. And I divide that into total fixed cost, and it gives me a break-even number. And that break-even number, I know 30% of it will be revenue driver 1, 10% will be revenue driver 2, and so forth. So that's the only nuance. That's the only trick, having multiple revenue drivers. Which then leads us to, so take a look at these slides, but you asked about capacity. Is it possible that, you know, if I have a business to break even, I have to be at 90% capacity in my restaurant every night? Well, that's telling you I got a problem. The business isn't going to work unless I make some changes. Okay, so thinking of break even as a percentage of your capacity is helpful. Also, think about linking it to operations in your business. So in this example, I have a hair salon. I have fixed costs of $35,000. My average price is $35 per haircut. My variable cost per haircut are $20. Labor, materials, whatever. So my contribution margin is 35 minus 20 or 15 per customer. Break even is 35,000 divided by 15 or 2,334 customer transactions. I'm open 6 days a week. I take out holidays. So I'm open 305 days a year. Break even is 2,334 transactions. That's 7.65 transactions. There's no such thing as 0.65 transaction. I rounded up to 8. I got to cut 8 heads a day to be breaking even. Right? So how are you thinking about your clients? That's why their capacity is important. If I'm a hair salon and I have 3 chairs, right? And the average haircut takes 50 minutes. And in between haircuts, I have to clean up the station and get ready for the next haircut. And I'm open 8 hours a day. That means each chair can do 8 cuts. There's 3 chairs. My capacity is 24 haircuts in one day, right? And this is saying I got to do 8. So I have to be sure those chairs are full at least 1/3 of the day. If they're not, if they're empty more than that, I'm having a tough time. And if that happens every day, I ain't gonna make it. Okay, which brings us then to the entrepreneur's profit model. The logic of profit in your client's business. And you already know half of this. This is not in a textbook. This is not in a finance book or an accounting book. It's too practical for them. So we developed this framework, and a lot of people use this framework. This is called your profit model or your economic model, the logic of profit in your business. What are the two parts you already know? Margins, volumes. Are your margins high, medium, or low? Are your volumes high, medium, or low? What's high margins? Let's start with low. What's low margins? Anything below 15% would be considered low. Anything between 15 and 85% would be medium. Anything over 85% margin we'll call high. So what do we know would be amazing? High margin with high volume. Never happens, but
Yeah.
if it did, what would suck? And what's true for many of our clients?
Low margin,
Low margin and low volume. Something's got to go. Something's got to be fixed. And then we're going to add two more variables. And they're very simple. This one, cost structure, the technical term is operating leverage. But cost structure is fine. It's simply saying of all your costs, what percentage is fixed and what percentage is variable. That's all it means. Technically then, cost structure is the ratio of total fixed costs to total variable costs. If total fixed costs and total variable costs are the same, then it would come to 1, right? So any number above 1 means you have more fixed costs than you do variable costs. Any number below 1 means you have more variable costs than you do fixed costs. For our clients, it tends to be below 1. They tend to have much more variable costs than fixed costs. This isn't a good or bad, it's just the way it is. Fixed costs represent what to the entrepreneur? Fixed costs. I gotta pay the rent every month. So think of a simple example. I'm working from home. I'm running the business from home. But I have to meet clients all the time. And it's awkward because I don't want them to come to my house. That looks unprofessional. So I'm meeting them at Starbucks, or I'm meeting them at the lobby of the Hyatt Hotel. At some point I go, I need to rent space. The minute you rent space, you've incurred you got to pay rent. So the minute you rent space, you've incurred a fixed cost, rent. Fixed costs to startup entrepreneurs represent risk. Fixed costs to why? Why does it represent risk? I gotta pay that rent every month, whether I had any business or lots of business. It's there, it's albatross over my, it makes me stress. It's not that you don't want to have fixed costs, because you can't grow without investing in fixed costs. It's just in the early days of a business, you want to try to keep those fixed costs as minimum as you can. And then this, you already know. How many revenue drivers do you have? It's the combination of these that explain how attractive the profit model is for a business. And I'm going to give you examples next time, including a business we started that we miscalculated. We had a crappy profit model, had to fix it. The power of this is it's a diagnostic tool that will allow you to fix things. If I go across the street, let's look at, we'll pick a business. What's the one clothing store on Eddy Street? Urban Outfitter. All right. I have never seen their numbers, but we can quickly figure out whether they have an attractive or unattractive profit model by using this. They're selling a lot of apparel. What's true about margins on apparel? They're huge. It costs $7 to make the shirt, the woman's shirt, and we sell it for $80. So margins so if you go to Urban Outfitter and you see a shirt on sale for like 11, they're just trying to dump it. Because it's going out of season or it's not popular or whatever. Margins are high. Okay, what's the problem over there? Volumes are medium to low, and if you don't just look at 1 month, you look at 12 months. And you factor in all the months students aren't here, and that's their principal customer base, then you got high margins with low volumes. That can work until what? What do we know about their cost structure? Is it mostly variable cost, the clothes, the hourly labor, or is it mostly fixed costs? It's overwhelmingly fixed costs. They have huge fixed costs because rent on Eddy Street is stupid. How many businesses since you've been here have gone out of business over there? It's a norm. There used to be a McAllister's, gone. There used to be, what else is there? Hair salon, gone. The insurance company, gone. It's tough to pay that rent. Not only do they have that, what else does the store have to carry in terms of fixed costs? They have a manager who earns a salary every month. That's a fixed cost. They're carrying insurance. They're paying a bunch for utilities. It's a good sized store and they got to keep it air conditioned in the summer and heated in the winter. They got a ton of fixed costs, which makes that high margin, low volume picture not look quite as attractive. Can it be saved by their revenue drivers? Not really. They probably could take all their apparel items and put them into 5, 6 categories. I don't know, sportswear. Or I don't know enough about fashion, so I'm not gonna embarrass myself, but that's not a help there. There aren't new revenue drivers that come to mind immediately for a clothing store. I can think of new revenue drivers for Jimmy John's. They could do catering. But it's the combination of these 4, and I'll give you examples next time, that make the business more attractive or less attractive. Okay? So you need to be digging into this with your clients. You got to capture this profit model in your business model. It's part 5 of the business model. Okay, see you Thursday. We're here to help if anybody, I also have 2 more handouts. Could you guys help me? 2 more quick handouts.
Yes.
We had a woman, this will help you guys with your clients. This will help you guys with your clients. Hold on.
Gonna do the.
We had a woman, I mentioned her before, she made high-end chocolates, beautiful bonbons. She's in the program. Chocolates, artisan, nice. This is the economic section of the business plan we created for her. So it'll show you 2 things that might be quite helpful to you. It'll show you how we helped her calculate her break-even number. And she's got bonbons, but she's also got like fruit something and hot chocolate. She's got multiple revenue drivers. So it'll show you how we calculated break-even for her, and it will show you her profit model. So take a look at it because it directly applies to all your clients. And then the other is this break-even we just did. I want you to try to solve this problem. It's a farmer who has all this acreage that he's not using because it doesn't pay for him to grow on a farm in Indiana. So he creates a paintball battlefield on his farm. It gives you the numbers for his paintball. It gives you his variable cost, his price, his fixed cost for his paintball battlefield. Okay, then I asked you a set of questions. Everybody get one? Are we short? Who didn't get one? There, over there. So paintball battlefield, it gives you the numbers. And then it asks you break even. It asks you some other questions. I want you to try, you gotta be disciplined. Try to solve it without turning the page over. Because when you turn the page over, there are the answers. You can compare what you come up with to the actual answers. If you have questions about any of it, because there's one little trick in there. We can talk about it next time. Sorry, see you next time.